The British don't take showers, that would certainly explain the greasy hair. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to words. In fact, you may by now have seen part 1 of this very video in which I brought you 5 words I didn't know before moving to the United States of America. And in that very video, I spoke about the inevitable follow-up videos that would, follow. And since I'm a man of my word, I wasn't about to make the inevitable evitable, so here we are. Now, just like last time, there are certain words you should not expect to see in this list. That is, American English usages that are just so commonly known I didn't have to live in America to hear them. So, for example, soccer, which was actually coined in Britain and is used in several countries where English is a dominant language, not just America. But I digress. No, this list is very specifically devoted to words I only picked up after weeks and months of living with Americans in America. So without further shamu, here are 5 more words I didn't know until I moved to America. It could be something to do with the fact that the world of real estate simply wasn't on my radar in 2008. In fact, it still isn't. But that doesn't diminish the fact that the word realtor is not only in much wider use in the United States, but it was in fact coined there. In 1916, a real estate agent from Minneapolis called Charles Chadbourne created the word to distinguish the legitimate section of the business. Moreover, it was later patented by the National Association of Real Estate Boards, and as such can legally only be used by its members. And yes, I do pronounce it patent. Live with it. Upon entering the language, the word enjoyed an absolute explosion of usages in American print, only to see a dramatic downturn during the Great Depression, much like the property market. Meanwhile, there are 2 perfectly good reasons that the word realtor didn't enter until after I moved to the United States. Number 1, there's the small matter of its patent, usually pronounced patent here in the United States. But number 2, the British overwhelmingly use the word estate agent, which is itself fairly common to American English. Thankfully, having never owned my own property, I very rarely feel obliged to use the word. Oh, and speaking of obliged... Wait, what? There's a different but not altogether dissimilar word meaning compelled to do something? Well, now I feel obliged to tell you about it, or should I say, obligated. You see, it turns out that in the right context, both words can be used to mean the same thing. The verb oblige dates back to around the 1560s, having evolved from the old French word obliger, while obligated came onto the scene around 100 years later as a back formation of the word obligation, a word used, of course, in both countries. And actually, not only is the word obligate to be found, much to my surprise, in British English, but the word oblige is actually more prevalent in American English than obligate. This could have something to do with the fact that some English speakers use that very word, the word oblige, in a more legal context, differentiating it from obligate. Either way, it's enough to leave Lawrence Brown feeling completely and utterly a little bit disorientated. Or is it? Such is the life of a British-American transplant. I spent the first year of my American life feeling very much this way. If I wasn't marvelling at the huge shift in climate from one country to the other, I was navigating the stark differences between our public toilets. I still don't know why there's a gap between the door and the frame, but then Americans don't seem to understand why I care about that, quite rightly, probably. The point is, there was something else to which I needed to acclimate, in addition, of course, to the word acclimate, and that was the word disoriented. Nowhere in the history of myself had I encountered this usage, having always used its strangely longer alternative, disorientated. And there's a good reason for this. Disorientated is considerably more prevalent in British English than it is in American English, but to my surprise, disoriented is not itself absent from the former. It turns out that both words emerged at roughly the same time, 400 years ago, with arguably the more intuitive spelling winning out in the United States. And I do wonder to this very day whether the originator of disorientate ever envisaged not cracking America like some certain YouTubers have. Not my words, those I read that in the comments. And actually, that brings us on to our penultimate entry. Whenever I set about making videos, I do my best to visualize how each one will pan out. You know, it will have the right amount of information, it will have a good transition, it will have toilet humor, and I do pronounce humor with a U. I mean, you can't tell. The point is, these are the things I envisage ahead of making my video, except now that I live in America, that word has given way to the quite similar envision. And not only is it similar, but it's newer. The word envision fell into usage, seemingly via American English, in the early 20th century. Indeed, owing to the fact that envisage was actually the preferred usage in America until the early 1970s, it's quite possible that Americans of a certain age still use it to this very day. And in Britain, they most certainly do. In fact, everyone of all ages does, except those who don't really have cause to, which is probably most people, evidenced by the fact that it's in decline. So 4 people use it, but that doesn't negate the fact that it dates back to the late 1700s and has been a fixture of English for more than a century longer than its counterpart. And speaking of counterparts, I'm not altogether certain that our final entry has one. Now, I know what you're thinking. The British don't take showers. That would certainly explain the greasy hair. Again, not my words. I read that in a group of hate comments. But before you cancel that wedding to your British other half, please know that I am talking about a different type of shower altogether. That is, a type of party whereupon someone, potentially you in this scenario, is bestowed with gifts. Now, before I moved to America, the noun form of shower usually meant one of 2 things. One, a place under which one bathes every month or so, and most Britishly, a downpour of rain. So when I was invited to my wife's cousin's friend's sister's baby shower, someone had to reassure me that this wasn't, a christening. After all, babies do get showered at those all the time, and they don't even have hair. But when I discovered that this was a party, suddenly it sounded amazing. I mean, I'm not one to turn down free booze, and socializing with humans can be fun, but then something struck me. This wasn't just a party for humans. The word baby was in the title. See, it turns out that these alcohol-free parties are not parties at all, but a wonderful chance to part with 10% of your rent, so someone you've never met can spend every last cent to their heart's content while they pat you on the head and say, "Love the accent, is that London or Kent?" That's more or less how it went down. But I'm by no means the first. This sense of the word shower has been used in American English since about 1904, originally referring to wedding gifts bestowed rather than the party itself. And over time, instances of the phrase baby shower have exceeded those of bridal shower, and to my amazement, both terms have seen an increase in usage in British English. I suppose I must have just been too busy not having children to realise. That's it for this episode. Please click the subscribe button to ensure that my videos don't get lost in the pond, and a big shout out to all my Patreons who make this channel possible. Without you, I would not be able to justify the work that I do, from the writing, the research, the technical equipment, and baby shower gifts. If you would like to become a patron of this channel, you can do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond. All patrons will have access to my secret live stream, and those pledging $5 or more a month will get that plus my secret podcast and more. Until next time, have a good time. Just that's gotta work on my outros. Thank you for watching this episode of Lost in the Pond. Don't forget to hit my stupid little face to subscribe, and please share this video with the world. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and if you would like to support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond.